Beyond the Gate spoilers for Thursday, August 7th, 2025 tease that Haley is cornered by her own lies. Bill begins to suspect his new wife's behavior after receiving more and more information suggesting she is pregnant. When Bill casually mentions a doctor's appointment tomorrow, scheduling an ultrasound, Haley is startled. She says she's too busy, though he insists he just wants to spend time with her and meet their unborn child. In the silence of that evening, we see Bill's patience wearing thin. He's polite but reserved, asking innocent questions about health, vitamins, cravings. Haley gives vague answers, changes the subject. When he said he had an appointment at 12 o'clock sharp and he really wanted her to come with him, she stammered, "I can't. I really have a meeting. It's urgent." Bill heard something deeper, though. His voice softened. "I just wanted to see you. To be there." She shifted uncomfortably, her eyes downcast, revealing the panic inside. She is not pregnant. Bill knows this, or at least strongly suspects it. He's observed her fraying nerves, the furtive glances at her phone, the late nights away from home. He's not cruel, but determined. Rather than confronting her head-on, he dangles the ultrasound appointment like bait. He wants her reaction. He wants to expose her. In this early stage, the tension escalates quietly, as a kettle just below boiling. Bill loves stability, honesty, a clean life. He married late, comfortable but cautious. Haley was charming, attentive, and ambitious. That ambition first attracted him someone who would elevate his social sphere. But something shifted. He began to sense that she had a backing, a silent partner manipulating behind the scenes. There were odd phone calls, payments, overheard fragments. And now this fake pregnancy means to anchor him, to prevent departure or divorce. Haley's viewpoint: she grew up impoverished, always craving validation. Marrying Bill was her ticket, secure, wealthy, established. She wooed him carefully, plying conversation over dinners, volunteering for his nonprofit, joining his inner social realm. Her friendship with Naomi was strategic. Naomi, known for community influence, who could open doors. But Naomi was just a stepping stone, part of Haley's performed world. Underneath, Haley is terrified someone will pull away the ladder she climbed. If Bill divorced her, she'd lose everything. She's already funneling funds into offshore accounts, converting his money into assets in her own name. But time is short, exposure imminent. The next morning, Bill wakes early and reviews emails. There's a cryptic message from a lawyer in Cayman Islands, referencing set offshore trust accounts and referencing Haley's initials. He forwards it discreetly to his own lawyer. He feels vindicated. Meanwhile, Haley retreats to powder her face, heart pounding. She texts someone from a second burner phone, meeting at cafe at 3. Make sure no one follows. She drafts a letter, an apology to Bill, but before she sends it, deletes it. The conflict between conscience and survival. She can't betray the people backing her. She cranks the windows down as she drives to a cafe that afternoon, determined to meet whoever's on the other end. Bill's shadowing her discreetly. He's not a detective, but he's cautious. He hires a discreet researcher to follow a woman matching Haley's description. The footage arrives late evening, Haley meeting at a corner table with a well-dressed, older man. They talk low voices. He hands her an envelope. She glances around nervously. Bill watches screen captures, heartbeats in his chest. She's meeting someone secretly. The scale of her duplicity deepens. He gathers photos, timestamps, meetings at other locations. She lied about where she was the night before. It's an atlas of deception. Haley's anxiety surges. She begins to lose sleep. When Bill confronts her at breakfast over pancakes and coffee is calm. You looked exhausted last night. She brushes it off. His soft voice cracks. Haley, are you all right? I care about you. About the baby. She tenses, reluctant. He continues gently. You can tell me anything. I'm here. Hypocrisy. She wonders, can I rip the bandage off now, or do I wait until everything is secured? Then there's Naomi. Naomi invites Haley to a charity event in mid-March. Haley insists she's too busy, Skip. But Naomi persists. Haley attends reluctantly, wearing a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. At the gala, Haley forces conversation, but Naomi's subtle. You look radiant. Expecting you didn't come last night. She flicks an eyebrow. Haley's heart stops. Naomi calls later. We have to talk. Please come by tomorrow. Haley recognizes danger not only Bill sees through, but Naomi too. Her plan is unraveling. Meanwhile, Bill intensifies his quiet investigation. He reviews world-class accountants tracing wire transfers. He discovers movement of cash from trusts in his name to shell companies. He shadows legal translation of what happens if he files for divorce. He informs his lawyer, we need all patrolling assets, freeze windows, temporary injunction. He plans to play a longer game. He doesn't want a scandal, but he cannot afford to lose everything. He recalls their wedding night smile, the vows but suspects everything was performance. At home late at night, Bill sends a text, I love you. See you tomorrow at the appointment. He reads it, then deletes. He sits alone, burdened by betrayal versus affection. He drinks black coffee, no sugar. Lights off, waiting. From Haley's side, that night is sleepless. She paces. Her phone buzzes. The man from earlier sends a note. I have the documents. Are you prepared? She hesitates, tears forming. She types, I need more time. Then deletes. Their messages build a ledger of power and pressure. She turns on email, types to Naomi, everything's falling apart. Please advise. Naomi's reply is curt, be cautious. Bill is onto you. The envelope he got must be delivered week after next. Delay if needed, but you owe us results. Haley gulps. Someone powerful is pulling strings. It isn't Naomi, but someone beyond her. The next morning, Bill relaxes over a light brunch early. He casually reviews his calendar. Doctor appointment tomorrow, he says softly. Haley tenses, saying, I told you I have a meeting. He looks at her blankly. She bites her lip. He offers coffee, she declines, hurries out. He watches from door as she retreats. He does not stop her. He wants more evidence. Haley meets again. This time at a dim parking garage. She gives a duffel bag to a second man. He counts cash. She nods. He files documents, birth certificates, adoption records, all false. She is to claim this baby as hers. Bill's tie is undone. In the back of Bill's mind, he wonders, did she procure a stolen identity for a baby that doesn't exist? He copies footage. The deeper she goes, the more tangled. At home, Bill is silent. He responds to calls, press releases, charity planning. But his emotional interior is collapsing. His trust shattered. He spends hours reviewing legal options. Can he annul marriage based on fraud? How to freeze assets tied to shell corporations in multiple jurisdictions. He consults experts in London trust law, even Cayman Island regulations. Haley, meanwhile, grows reckless. She performs in the evenings, calls Naomi to dinner, says she is about to break the news to Bill on the plane ride to London business trip. She buys maternity clothes, fakes weight gain. At home, she changes tastes ice cream, pickles, but Bill watches. He notes she never eats them. At dinner, she pretends cravings. He flashes skeptical looks. But he continues the charade. He picks out maternity vitamins. He offers prenatal massages. She recoils inside. She hides all scrapbooks of gifts, pregnancy tests, ultrasound fakes. She logs fake doctor emails. She even hires a temp actress to pose as ultrasound technician in scripted video. Each step deeper. Her mental strain multiplies. Bill sets up a disguised appointment. He calls the doctor's office himself, using another identity, and confirms that no ultrasound was ever scheduled for Haley's name. There is no record. His suspicions are confirmed. She never booked an appointment. He inwardly seethes, but keeps calm. He says he'll rebook and come with her, giving her another chance. She reacts worst. She storms out, but apologizes feverishly. I'm sorry, I've been paranoid. I thought you'd please let's talk. He nods, agreeing but with steel behind his eyes. One afternoon, Bill sets a trap. He arranges to bring home flowers and lunch to share, planning to show her that he has her best interests at heart. He arrives early after a business trip. He knocks. She answers, startled. Behind her, 2 black SUVs parked outside. More watchers waiting. She tries to hide her phone. He steps inside, gently kisses her cheek, then calmly asks, "Morning." She gulps. He suggests they eat outside on the terrace. She nods, pale. Once seated, he sips iced tea and says, "Haley, I know you're not pregnant." She nearly chokes. She looks stunned. He continues, "I've seen your photos. I know about the envelope. I know about the money. I have proof you are being backed by someone." Her eyes fill with tears. She whispers, "Please don't divorce me." He's quiet. He leans in. "Who is behind you, Haley? Tell me now." She cries. But she refuses to speak identity. She begs him not to send pictures to the lawyer. She pleads that she'll change, she'll stay, but Bill stays impassive. The next few days, she isolates. She sends a message to the man. He knows. Everything's falling apart. He replies, "Proceed with the birth certificate next week. We'll sort divorce later." "Don't panic." She shakes. Bill watches wire transfers being reversed, funds vanishing. An offshore trust flagged and frozen. She tries to scramble. She calls Naomi again. Naomi warns, "If he contacts my clinic, I'm done. Stay quiet." In the meantime, Bill sets up his own support. He visits the doctor's office in person, under his real name, politely requests clarifications. The receptionist tells him no such patient exists. He looks at the directory, searches name. Haley not listed. He feels relieved yet hollow. Haley senses her world crumbling. She turns to plan if Bill divorces her, she needs to exit quickly with the assets. She arranges wire transfers to her own account disguised as consulting fees. She empties temporary offshore holding, waits for the divorce settlement. Bill doesn't confront yet. He organizes a calm family dinner with Naomi as unassuming guest. He invites Naomi over, ostensibly for coffee. As Naomi arrives, Bill's lawyer is there disguised as guest. He watches Naomi's expression. Naomi smiles, polite but guarded. Bill steers conversation to charity work. Naomi mentions Haley's absence. Bill frowns lightly. Naomi says diplomatically, she's had a lot on her plate. Bill nods. Subtext thick. Later, Naomi leaves, suspicious. At home, Haley collapses in tears. She has nothing left to rely on. Bill approaches, but she pushes him away. She hates herself. She did what she thought necessary, but now it's unraveling. She confesses, "I was trying to secure everything before you left me. 2 wasn't pregnant. I never was. I'm sorry." Bill stays silent. There is no judgment yet, just powerful sorrow in his silence. Bill has cornered Haley without exposing her publicly. He's gathered evidence, but has not confronted her fully. Haley is unraveling between fear of exposure and regret. She's lost control of the plan she had executed meticulously. Haley sat alone in the guest bedroom, the one she used to joke about turning into a nursery. Her hair was undone, makeup streaked, knees pressed to her chest. For the first time in months, she had no performance to put on. No lies to rehearse. Her fake pregnancy had collapsed under the weight of Bill's silence. He hadn't screamed. He hadn't thrown things. That made it worse. The calm was unbearable. Across the hallway, Bill was already in his study, door closed, blinds drawn. He was done playing defense. Now it was time to strike back with precision, not emotion. His investigator had traced the man Haley met in the cafe. His name, Owen Kellman, once indicted for financial fraud in Europe. Acquitted, but dirty. Bill's legal team had already linked 2 of his shell companies to transfers matching Haley's recent activity. One of the trusts Bill established for disaster relief donations had been quietly rerouted, set to be drained under the guise of a charity merger approved by fake documentation. Haley hadn't just betrayed Bill, she'd crossed into criminal territory. Still, Bill didn't rush. His years in business taught him that exposure was more powerful when delivered with perfect timing. He needed to find out how deep Haley's betrayal went and, more importantly, who else was involved. There were pieces that didn't add up. Owen Kellman wasn't a mastermind. He was a proxy. The real architect had been smart enough to remain in the shadows. Someone who knew Bill's finances, who understood the rhythm of his decisions, who likely had access through personal proximity. There was only one person who fit that profile: Naomi. Naomi had known Bill for years, long before Haley came into the picture. She'd advised him during several expansions of his philanthropic foundation. A former finance consultant turned socialite, Naomi always knew which strings to pull. She introduced Haley to the right people, vouched for her, helped polish her image. At first, it had seemed like generosity. In retrospect, it looked like grooming. Haley's relationship with Naomi had been complex from the start. She admired Naomi, feared her, needed her approval. But now Naomi wasn't returning her messages. Haley sent 5 texts, left voicemails, tried calling from her burner. No answer. Naomi had gone cold. And that terrified Haley more than anything. That night, Haley snuck into Bill's office while he was away at a board meeting. She scanned through his files, looking for any indication that her accounts had been flagged. What she found made her blood run cold: printed photos of her meeting with Owen, bank statements showing large sums moved to offshore accounts under her name, a recorded transcription of a call between Owen and someone labeled N. Aldridge. Naomi. It wasn't even a nickname or a code name. She hadn't even bothered to hide. Suddenly, Haley realized what this was. She wasn't Naomi's partner. She was the pawn. The fall girl. If this blew up, she'd be the one answering questions. Owen could vanish. Naomi would deny everything. And Bill, in his cold, calculated way, would watch her burn. The next morning, Haley packed a suitcase and left it near the front door. When Bill asked what it was for, she said she was visiting a friend for a few days to clear her head. He didn't argue. He nodded once and said nothing more. That scared her even more than if he'd begged her to stay. He was done pretending. But Haley didn't leave. She waited until Bill fell asleep that night, then crept back into the office and pulled out a small drive from behind a bookshelf, something she'd hidden months ago. It contained encrypted recordings, backup emails, documents Naomi had sent her to forge. If she was going down, she wasn't going alone. Meanwhile, Bill had other plans. He met with his attorney and presented everything. They would initiate proceedings not just for divorce, but for fraud charges, asset recovery, and identity theft if necessary. The legal case was solid, but Bill still lacked a motive he could prove. Why would Naomi go to such lengths to ruin him? The answer came in the form of a single line in an old business memo, discovered by one of his assistants: proposal for Aldridge trust merger, rejected by BOAR, signed, Bill. Years ago, Naomi had pitched a merger between her family trust and Bill's. He'd blocked it, citing transparency issues. She had never forgiven him. Bill realized the scale of what Naomi had built. A years-long grudge turned into a living, breathing scheme. She'd handpicked Haley, groomed her into the perfect wife, coached her on how to get pregnant quickly, or at least appear to be. The pregnancy had been a means of control. A way to keep Bill in place until the final transfer went through. But Haley had cracked under pressure. The plan had gone off course. In a final act of self-preservation, Haley requested a meeting with Bill at their lake house, neutral territory. She told him everything about Naomi, about Owen, about how she'd been manipulated. She cried, she begged, she offered him the USB drive. Bill listened silently, then asked one question: "Why didn't you stop?" Haley paused. "Because for the first time in my life, I had power. And I didn't want to lose it." That night, Bill drove alone to Naomi's estate. She greeted him at the door in a silk robe, holding a glass of wine. "I was wondering when you'd come." He said nothing for a moment. "Then, you used her. You used me." Naomi's smile didn't falter. "I gave her a future. You were always the prize, Bill. Don't act surprised." But the confrontation didn't go as she expected. Bill handed her an envelope subpoena. She laughed. This won't stick. Bill raised an eyebrow. It already has. He walked away as sirens began to approach in the distance. He had already tipped off authorities, and Naomi's assets had been flagged just hours earlier. Back at home, Haley sat in silence. The USB drive was gone. Bill hadn't returned. But she wasn't crying anymore. She wasn't begging. She understood what she was now a player in someone else's game who got too smart too late. The next morning, Haley received a notice. Formal divorce proceedings had begun. She'd been removed from all access to Bill's accounts. Her lawyers advised her to cooperate. Her reputation was tanking. Gossip blogs were buzzing, a few whispers of scandal starting to surface. But the full story hadn't broken yet. That afternoon, she made one final call. Not to Bill. Not to Naomi. But to Owen. She demanded answers. Why did he back out? Why didn't he protect her? Owen's voice on the other end was cold. You weren't worth the risk. Naomi burned you to save herself. Haley hung up, stomach hollow. Everything she'd built, their status, her name, her marriage was gone. And she knew Naomi would never pay the full price. People like Naomi never did. A week later, Bill stood on the balcony of his townhouse, sipping coffee. The divorce was underway, the press carefully managed. He'd salvaged most of his assets, protected his foundation. But something inside him had shifted. He felt older. Not in years, but in spirit. In the shadows of the gate across the street, a figure watched. Not Haley. Not Naomi. Another player. Someone who had been observing all along. Someone with their own plan, their own interest in what Haley had started but failed to finish. Because this wasn't over. It had only just begun. Bill couldn't sleep. The silence of his now empty home echoed like a punishment. Where there had once been the scent of Haley's perfume lingering in the hallway, the click of her heels on the marble, the occasional hum of music from the bathroom, there was now only cold stillness. The legal battle was well underway, but the emotional fallout was just beginning. Haley was gone, Naomi was cornered, but the damage was lasting. He was respected still, yes, but not untouched. The scandal had left a smear. Whispers in boardrooms. Raised eyebrows at functions. Sympathy from those who secretly loved to see a powerful man fall. And yet, amid the wreckage, Bill couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the end. The problem wasn't just Haley. It wasn't just Naomi. It was what they represented. A system of quiet predators, manipulators, and social climbers who knew how to smile while cutting your throat. Naomi had gone radio silent after the subpoena, her attorneys buying her time. She hadn't been arrested yet. But Bill knew that kind of power didn't just vanish. She was regrouping. Watching. Maybe even planning a counterattack. She had too much at stake not to. But Haley was the real wild card. The last time they spoke was at the lake house. She handed him the drive, gave him the truth, or at least her version of it. And then she disappeared from his radar completely. The press couldn't find her. The investigators said she hadn't left the country, but her digital footprint had vanished. No credit cards. No calls. Nothing. For a while, Bill believed she'd gone to some quiet place to lick her wounds. But then came the letter. Unmarked envelope. No return address. Inside, a note. You think Naomi was behind all of it? She wasn't. She was just the front. I've been protecting you from what's really coming. They're not finished. You were never the only target. You just never asked the right questions. Attached was a photo. Grainy. Black and white. Surveillance style. It showed Bill sitting in a restaurant years ago. Smiling. Laughing. Across from him sat a man Bill didn't immediately recognize. But then it clicked. The same man Haley had met in the cafe. Owen Kelman. Only this wasn't recent. This was before Haley. Before Naomi had re-entered his life. Before everything. That single photo rewrote the entire narrative. Bill had been marked long before Haley stepped into the picture. The trap had been laid years earlier. Maybe through an old deal gone wrong, a rival he'd forgotten about, or someone who envied his position. Owen wasn't just a facilitator. He was the thread leading back to something much deeper. Bill knew he had to go further. He reopened files from old business ventures, cross-referenced shell company names, looked at minor mergers that had passed through intermediaries. It all led to one financial group, Midasgate Holdings. A name he'd heard in passing. A name buried in paperwork, never attached to anything directly. And yet they were everywhere. Silent investors in projects he'd backed. Shadow donors to foundations he supported. And now, likely the ones who sent Haley to infiltrate his life. It had never been about love. Or even money. It had been about control. Midasgate specialized in taking down influential figures and rebuilding them as puppets. They made it look like organic failure scandal, fraud, disgrace, then swept in as saviors. Bill had resisted partnerships with them in the past without knowing how close they really were. Haley wasn't just a gold digger. She had been their knife. Naomi, their smile. And now they wanted a second round. Bill stood at the window, gripping the photo. He could run. Fade into private life. Let the world assume he'd been duped and step away. Or he could strike back. He made his choice. The next morning, he visited someone from his military days, someone owed a favor. A digital security expert. Together, they traced more than just offshore accounts. They followed encrypted communications. Found whispers of new targets. High-profile CEOs. A judge. A senator. All people who'd suffered personal downfalls that followed a pattern. Bill compiled it all. Then he disappeared. 3 months later, a leak rocked the financial world. A whistleblower file, sent anonymously to 3 major news outlets, revealed the operations of Midasgate holding front companies, fabricated scandals, asset takeovers, and political manipulation. In the center of the narrative, a figure known only as Gideon the Architect. A person never seen, never traced. But now exposed. And with the leak came surveillance footage, clear video of Owen meeting with multiple insiders, including Naomi. A voice recording confirmed their role in pushing Haley into Bill's life. It ended with Naomi's voice, "He'll never see it coming." Bill always thinks with his heart. The scandal went public fast. Naomi was arrested for fraud and conspiracy. Owen vanished. Haley's name was dragged again, but Bill made sure the leak painted her as both participant and pawn. Not innocent but used. Then came one final twist. A new foundation was launched overseas under a different name. Focused on financial justice. One of the board members was listed anonymously. But those who looked closely at the leaked files could spot the patterns. The foundation used Bill's systems. His encryption. His style. He hadn't just disappeared. He'd gone underground. To fight the system that tried to destroy him. And as for Haley? She was last seen boarding a ferry in the Aegean Sea under an assumed name. No one knew where she was headed. But the final scene, unconfirmed, unverified, showed her standing at the edge of the deck, watching the water, hand on her stomach. Maybe she had nothing. Or maybe she finally had something real to protect.